Lois was the youngest of 5 kids, the only girl.
And I can still see her walking through the crowd, and I don't know how many times I woke up just screaming, "Don't!"
I pushed the window open, and as soon as my feet landed in the tub, I was overcome with a sense of dread.
The car's there, the house was locked, her purse is in the house. This is bad.
There was 2 drops of blood found on the wallboard inside the side door.
There is no question that there are people that know more than what they're telling us.
To have someone gone and not know how they left and where they are.
This case is a little bit like catching smoke. She simply vanished.
Lois went in a local pageant. Miss Midwestern, a bunch of her girlfriends are going in on it and stuff there. Well, she won it. She was more shocked than anybody else. She had a natural way about her. She was easy to talk to. She was very friendly. I mean, of course, the judges picked up on that. Anyway, that win gets her into the CNE pageant where she gets picked in the top 5. So now you got to come up with a speech and do this speech on the stage. And Lois, she was clearly breaking into a sweat there. She gets partway through the speech, her hands are shaking so bad, and she misses one of her cue cards, and she turns away from the microphone. She's trying to sort out her cards. She goes, "Oh." And all we heard,
That wasn't away from the microphone. It's on the mirror. Oh, but it just went. Lois was the youngest of 5 kids, the only girl. So if you frame a family in that context, you can imagine she was pretty special to everybody. She had a wicked sense of humor. She was playful, devious. She loved to play pranks on people, and her friends, her circle of friends, if somebody had a boyfriend problem or just something was making them feel bad, Lois would go about it and make it her business to make whatever that was right. She was not taken over easily by anyone. She was very much her own person, very strong-willed. And Lois was only 25 when we lost her.
July of 1988, that was the homecoming for the town of Lucknow. Everybody's excited, everybody comes back to town, and there's lots of dances and meals and house parties, and so it was a whole weekend event. And the final part of the weekend was this damn shirt tail parade dance. So my girlfriend at the time, we went down to the arena where the dance was, dropped Lois off because she had her car sitting up at the community center. Walked in the dance, same whole weekend crowd, plus a bunch of extras that heard how much fun it was, so the place was jammed up pretty good. Lois comes up to me and she's getting kind of tired, and she's going to drive home because she's got to open the store the next day. And of course, you give her a hug and all this here, and she's walking away from me, and I can still see her walking through the crowd, and I don't know how many times I woke up out of a sleep just screaming, don't, and that was it.
Lois was enthusiastic. She was dependable, honest, a lot of fun. We worked at McGee's Female Apparel, a ladies' clothing store in Kincardine. Typically, we opened at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was not working that day, and I drove past the store just on my way to run some errands, and the sign wasn't out. I finished running my errands, and I came back past the store, and it still wasn't open. So I went into the store and opened it. I'm going to guess around 11 o'clock in the morning. I had everything set up, and I called her at her home, and there was no answer. Because I was the only one in the store, I couldn't leave. So I called a coworker, and I asked if she would mind dropping by and knocking on the door.
I was riding my bike, and I pulled up in front, and I immediately noticed that her car was in the driveway. And I actually sort of laughed to myself, thinking that she had just had a really late night the night before. I noticed that the curtains were drawn, and I went to the side door beside the car, which is where we always entered her house, and it was locked. Walked up on the porch, and the sliding glass doors were locked. And I then just looked up, and I saw to my left, there was one of those really very, very small bathroom windows, the little sliding ones, and it was cracked open just a tiny bit. And so I was able to fit through that window. But as soon as my feet landed in the tub, I was overcome with a sense of dread. I immediately felt I should not have entered the house. I was scared, but I was in the house and I couldn't get back out that window. So everything in the house looked fine. It looked undisturbed. There was nothing out of place. I quickly looked in her bedroom, and the bed was made. Nobody in the bed. I looked in the living room because the television was on, even though the blinds were drawn, and there was nobody in the living room. And then I turned toward the side door, and I noticed there was a coffee mug sitting right on this little island that was beside the side door. I got very scared quickly, and I called Deb McGregor on the phone.
It said, well, Christine, would you go down into the basement? We didn't have cell phones. She left the receiver where I could hear her, and she went into the basement, and she came up a minute later, and she said, no, there's nothing out of place. Lois isn't here. So then I said, get out and come to the store. I was nervous to call Lois's brothers or her mom. I didn't want anybody to be worried. So I contacted one of Lois's brother's girlfriends, and I asked, did Lois say anything about going away today? And she said, no, Lois knew she had to open the store today.
My girlfriend was working at the travel office in Kincardine. She phones up and said, Lois didn't make it to work today. I thought, well, that's really bizarre. I mean, she would never just take off. She would always leave a note for something. And of course, this is before cell phones.
Purses.
And they said, well, Lois's purse, she always put it in a little china cabinet was in the kitchen. I jumped in the truck and I'm driving to Kincardine thinking, her purse is in the house. Like, if the car's there, the house was locked, her purse is in the house, this is bad. I get to the house and the scene is, we got a town cop there because the OPP policed outside edge of town, so we had to deal with town jurisdiction. They saw a 25-year-old girl. She's probably gone out with a boyfriend somewhere and got up to no good or whatever, and we kept saying, no, this isn't Lois.
We weren't waiting on them to do something because they weren't going to do anything for 48 hours.
I mean, the temperature, we're in July, and this is hot weather. I'm thinking, okay, if she's left unattended with this heat, we've got to get to her immediate. We shredded that town on the Monday night. All the passageways, all the walkways, all the riverbanks, under bridges. It wasn't very long. I'm outside of town, roaring up and down some of the side roads and stuff, in the back of a pickup truck, holding the flashlight over top of your head, shining into a ditch, and we're just covering ground now because it's so damn hot. We had to do something. I phoned one of our buddies. I said, can you round up the boys? We met everybody right and early. There's like about 75 of them showed up. Their cars and trucks and four-wheelers, and we're at the town police going, now what do we do now? And they're going, you're getting everybody all worked out. Just go home, we're on the job. So we went back to Lois's house and started the headquarters out of there. And then I was saying, okay, you take this grid. We had town maps. And then you take this grid. You go through this town block to block to block. It didn't take us very long. We covered the town. We had planes in the air at that time. We had radio in the plane. We had radios at the airport. We had radios at our station. So we had pretty good communication for the time frame that we were in. And then it was Wednesday night. That was when we heard OPP was officially involved at that point. Because we were going to do our own damn dive on the harbor. So they said they've got a professional dive team. So OPP, that's Thursday morning, I believe, is the first the OPP stepped in.
Approximately 1 week after Lois Hanna went missing, the Ontario Provincial Police were asked to assist in the investigation with the Kincardine Municipal Police Service.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you today, Bill?
Good.
A detective inspector was assigned to the case, as were a group of officers. I was one of those first officers.
The Hanna family keep bringing your name up, and they keep telling Linda, do you talk to Bill about this?
When OPP joined the search for Lois, we used forensic identification. We used K9 helicopters. We did have a small OPP boat that patrolled the shoreline. There were divers that went up and down the channel and on the outsides of the piers. There are holes in the walls under the piers that they checked just in case something was in there. We had many volunteer searchers that assisted in the various searches that the OPP did.
I remember many cornfields, just walking through cornfield after cornfield, looking for her, calling out, lots of empty, abandoned barns. And so really the rest of that summer, what I remember is just searching with helicopters overhead.
There was so many tips that came in, occurrences where someone was seen in a field. And we actually used quite a few OPP plus numerous volunteers. One place we searched up to, I believe it was 1,000 acres.
A young woman has been missing for more than 3 weeks. Police have no evidence of foul play, but the family and friends of Lois Hanna say they're convinced she didn't vanish of her own accord.
All that family and investigators know for certain is that she did make it to her home in Kincardine and was preparing for bed. The next day, she failed to show for work at a clothing store in town.
During my time on the investigation, there was approximately 850 people interviewed. One example, Monday morning, the 4th of July, 1988, the day Lois vanished, approximately 10 a.m., we have a tourist who was going to go shopping at McGee's clothing store where Lois had worked. And she was standing outside with her daughter, waiting for it to open at 10 a.m. when 2 men came walking out of the building. They thought nothing of it. They walked up thinking the store was open and found the door locked. They gave a description of these 2 people, which are on file, and no one associated with the store could identify them.
And still nothing this many years later. Anybody that's ever been involved in anything like this, I just don't... It's just the strangest thing.
It's as if Lois simply vanished, drinking a cup of tea.
One of these cups. They were just kind of sitting about here, and it was half full of tea, and the handle was facing back towards the refrigerator.
Have you sat down and tried to come to terms with the worst possible scenario?
The worst being a body. I think it'd be easier to deal with than this.
Searching.
And finding nothing, yeah.
But David won't give up looking. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Kincardine.
Trying to go back to work, you're trying to deal with customers, and I shouldn't even be in the damn store right now. I should be out searching. Well, we had ground that down so far, like search what?
By year 10, everything had just pretty much gone quiet.
Between 1996 and 1999, the Ontario Provincial Police decided to review the case and to investigate new tips that came in. There were some new officers assigned so we get a fresh view of the case. I was still one of those officers. I investigated tips occasionally from time to time as they came in between 1999 and 2004 when I retired. When I drive into Kincardine, I pass within view of Lois's house. And believe me, I think about the case quite often. And the Lois Hanna case is the only case that I've worked on that has not been solved. With the right information, I think that we could bring this case to a close.
I missed my sister terribly when she left us, and I had really no idea what Mom was going through until we had Kaylee. This is my daughter, Kaylee. She was born in 1992. She was robbed of a fantastic aunt because the 2 of them were so similar in character. I think that they would have had just an absolute wonderful relationship. And as this kid grew, she was so much like Lois that Mom would call her Lois. And after Kaylee became, I think she was like 4 or 5, she stopped correcting her.
Lois would have been quite a role model to have her running shoes on to stay with her, that's for sure.
Yeah, kids would have learned to do things that we would not have learned how to do otherwise.
The shopping sprees and something else.
Before Christmas, she would get each of our credit cards and go shopping. And shopping meant that you paid for all the gasoline, you paid for lunch, you paid for drinks for everyone that was in the car. And it wouldn't just be Lois, she'd have like an entourage with her that would take part in this whole thing. And she would go out and they would buy very tasteful gifts. But she would get 4 weekends of this because she had 4 brothers. and she looked forward to it.
It was wonderful. And a big surprise for everybody on Christmas Day. It was awesome.
I'd come home, we'd had the Heather family reunion at Jim's place. And I think that's actually the last time I actually saw Lois, because she was working in Kincardine and I was staying here at the homestead with Mom. I went back out to Winnipeg. It's fuzzy how long I was there. I was there for a while because I was working on the budgets for the company, and got a phone call in the evening from Mom.
I kept this stool from the store. If you'll notice the top of it, it's got several little holes, little divots in the top. All those little holes in the top came from Lois's stiletto heels. She took a lot of grief for those heels. She could probably move faster in those heels than I could in a pair of running shoes. And that was part of her charm, that she was could be a real girly girl, and yet she was as solid as a rock.
We're thrilled that 38 years later, people are still talking about Lois. We talk about Lois like an everyday event, but it's nice that OPP want to do this video now. 38 years later, they're still having interest in it. They've got Linda on there dedicated to just Lois's case. My goodness, like that's quite a commitment.
I had completed 30 years of service and I was set to retire at the beginning of 2023. And I was asked if I would come back and work on the Lois Hanna investigation. My role in this investigation is the primary investigator and the file manager. This case is under supervision of the Criminal Investigation Branch of the Ontario Provincial Police. So I work through the direction of Detective Inspector Phil Hordick.
I'm the major case manager. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the integrity of the investigation. I'm there to support the primary investigator, Detective Linda Weltz, to provide her with any resources that she might need access to. Ultimately, I work with her to control the speed, flow, and direction of the case.
Basically what I do is I will follow up on all new tips and then review existing information in the file as well, such as her day planner, because Lois Hanna kept notations in them and used them almost like a diary. And what I can say is that we have the statements from other people about activities, so we've been able to go back to her planner and collaborate. Okay, yes, she had that noted, so we can confirm that what that person told us was truthful, and it makes you feel like you have a connection to her. It's in her handwriting. It's the details of a person going about their normal everyday life. She's only 25 years old, but she was organized and she kept these planners faithfully. And it's kind of hard to see them stop, like on July 4th. There's no new information.
Since Linda came on board, I believe we've had 35 new tips that have been investigated. We have gone back and looked at 18 previous tips that we felt were relevant, we felt needed further investigation. As a result of that, we have done 45 new interviews in the last 2 years. We've done 2 polygraphs in the last 2 years. A big part of historical cases is reassuring the public and reassuring the family that we're still working, that we're not quitting.
The evidence in this case starts at Lois's residence in Kincardine. Everything was very orderly in her home, very normal looking, with the exception of 2 items, and one was a cup of tea that was half drank and left on the counter by the side entrance door. For her to leave that there, what we've learned is that would not be normal for her to leave a cup of tea there. The other exception is that there was 2 drops of blood found on the wallboard inside the side door.
In 1988, the evidentiary value of that blood was very, very limited. We could only tell blood type. Moving forward into 1997, we were able to generate a DNA profile. And at that time, they generated a male DNA profile.
The fact that her cup of tea was at that side door, we think that she's gone to the side door at some point. And one of our focuses is to try to determine who is responsible for those 2 drops of blood and if they're responsible for her disappearance.
After she was initially reported missing, the Hanna brothers did an outstanding job. They mobilized an entire community to search. That came at a bit of a cost. Obviously, they used the house as their base of operations, so there were lots of people that were in and out of that house. People that we've now spoken to, we've gone back and looked at those records, trying to eliminate them again from, potentially being depositors of the blood.
And of course, they took the chunk of wall out and they announced they were doing some DNA work on it. They knew it was male blood. Mm-hmm. But again, we'd had the headquarters there for a damn search. in the place. So we had so many people go through, and of course a bunch of the church ladies are in, and of course when they left, they cleaned everything spotless.
As of now, that DNA profile has been uploaded into the National DNA Databank. That's cross-referenced with the National Convicted Offender Index. And as to this date, we've had no hits. We are leveraging the advanced technology that's available to us today, working with partner labs in the States to generate as much evidence as we can from that evidence.
Another interesting item we have cataloged was collected by the detective inspector, Terry Hall, at that time. In 1988, he found out the information about what Lois was possibly wearing, what's missing from the home, and that was the nightgown and matching robe. And they learned where it had been purchased locally, and they were able to go to that business and buy a duplicate. And that is a good thing to have in case any parts of that garment are ever recovered. We can compare and identify that it's the same type.
Some of the evidence that the police haven't spoken about previously in this case was intentional. The only people that should know those specifics are the person who's responsible and the police and the investigators. In this case, we do have a witness that came forward in the 90s regarding a vehicle that they saw in front of Lois's house. The witness described a vehicle parked in front of Lois's house facing eastbound towards the main street. So it would have been the morning of July 4th at approximately 3 o'clock in the morning. The witness has given the same account of that story repeatedly over the years. We have a very clear description of what that vehicle was. We're not releasing that. The reason being, the details of the vehicle will allow us to determine how accurate the tips are that we might get regarding that. What we can say about this vehicle is that it had round headlights. In 1988, vehicle manufacturers are moving towards square style headlights, and those round headlights really do put this vehicle in a vintage of the mid-70s. Ultimately, if there's somebody out there who was in that car at that time and knows it was them, we would like to talk to that person about why we're there, what they might have seen. They could have witnessed something, and they might be able to help us with this investigation, and that's why we're releasing it at this time.
Say it's anonymous information, and I just say very briefly what it kind of touches on. The one thing about this case in terms of new evidence or information is that the community is very much alive to this case. This local community is very much focused on it, and we've had a lot of cooperation from people that come forward with tips over all these years. So that's the kind of community engagement we need.
This witness account is known to the public a little bit. We're addressing it now because this witness has come forward several times, and we believe them to be a very reliable witness. They were in a residence by the lighthouse. It was July 4th, the date Lois is believed to have vanished, and the witness heard a disturbance at approximately 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, the details of that disturbance are known to us, they're known to the witness, and we're going to keep that to ourselves. But if anybody has any information about who might have been on the north side of the harbor that night around 3 in the morning, or had a boat in that area that might be able to provide some information about who else had boats in that area and who would come and go, we're very interested in hearing about that and determining whether or not it's relevant to this case.
The rest of that summer was really filled with a lot of anxiety, a lot of thinking about where she might be, and a lot of empathy for her family and what her family was going through. And then I went off to university. It started that at that point I couldn't be in a house by myself. So I think there's a very direct relationship with what happened with Lois. Because if you're not safe in Kincardine, in this little community, how can you be safe, like in a big city like Toronto? And so it really had a profound impact on my life.
Lois Hanna is from Bruce County. I was from Bruce County. I've lived here most of my life. And Lois Hanna and I are around the same age. So I could certainly kind of relate to her as a person. I didn't know her personally, but I could relate to that. And it definitely had an impression upon me.
She was a friend and I loved her and I could depend on her. But you're off kilter. You're never the same. You're never the same after that. Originally, when I first talked to people about Lois being gone, it was like someone's taken my right arm. You can carry on without a right arm and you can have an awfully nice life. But for her family, they've taken part of their heart. They just can't How do you get over that? You can't.
Folks look at us and will say, well, why are you living in the past? Why don't you just move on?
Yeah.
Just move, like you can just do that. And boy, if I thought there was a way to do that. I mean, let's face it, we had to live our lives.
Dad was gone before Lois went missing. Thank goodness for that. That would have crushed Dad. Mom got to endure the whole brunt of that.
Mom's great fear was to die not knowing what happened to her baby. And that now is starting to hang over my head.
Lois didn't lead a high-risk lifestyle. She was beloved by the community. She was beloved by her family and friends. And sometimes I think there's the perception that with these historical cases, that the same amount of effort and work isn't being put into them. And that's simply not true. The OPP has an entire unit dedicated to working on these cases. This case is unique in that I have a full-time detective working on this case alone. And I think the people of Kincardine, the people of South Bruce, deserve to know that we're doing that and that we're not quitting and that we will be relentless in trying to find the truth in this case.
We're sitting here in our childhood home just feeling homesick because Lois isn't here. And it just, all the anger I've been carrying, we've been carrying for whoever did this to us. At the end of the day, that anger doesn't produce anything but just more anger.
That's hard to turn that anger off, but right now I'd be content with just having Lois back.
But if we could put her with her mom and dad, that would be, I believe that.
Yeah.
That'd be enough.
The most challenging part of this case is the fact that there is no question that there are people that know more than what they're telling us. Circumstances change, people change, perspectives change. Why they might not have come forward before doesn't matter anymore. Now's the time. We're all getting older, and the Hanna family deserves to know what the truth is. They deserve to have Lois home.